I've never voted for a Republican in my life, and I applaud what the Trump administration is doing. I am an Ivy League graduate, and I've been appalled by what they have done over the past 20 years. And I think one of the critical points that we're missing here is why these universities have increased their enrollments from foreign countries so dramatically over the past 20 years. And the reason is so that they can save their endowments and not have to use those endowments on the very kids Botch is referring to. Black kids and kids from Appalachia who would otherwise qualify for financial aid that would end up being paid for through their endowments. And incidentally, the other component of this that I think is really important, and it goes to the first topic of conversation, is that there's been the reason why countries like Qatar have spent billions and billions of dollars on Ivy League schools in particular is to reshape the debate at the elite level regarding the Middle East. And to many of us, what it looks like, they're insinuating foreign propaganda into these elite institutions. And you see this not only in the student body, but you see it among the academics who are hired in order to completely reconstruct American foreign policy and the debate in the United States concerning it. And, Mark, you had mentioned about legal problems to it. I'm a lawyer. There are no legal issues that immediately come to my mind as to why. It's certainly not an equal protection problem. I couldn't think. Now there might be something under federal education law that I'm not familiar with, but I didn't know what you had in mind when you were talking about it in terms of a legal violation.
I just think a judge is going to say that you can't condition federal aid on a government specifying the enrollment policies of a university. I can't tell you what that violates, but I'm certain it violates something. It just can't be.
You might be right. I just couldn't think of
it can't be
anything.
possibly true to me that the federal government could say to Harvard, you can only admit white people, or you can only admit left-handed people, or you can only admit American citizens.
Look, I'm hardly a constitutional law expert, but it strikes me as that it's not a protected category, right? Like, so if you look at equal protection
But it's
violations,
not. It's not the right of the international students. It's the right of Harvard to determine who will be in its student body.
Right. But if you're saying I'm not going to finance
there's
you.
some lawyer on
Well,
here
but then why couldn't you go after Robert Jones University for stuff? I mean, this is the slippery slope once you open this door. And look, the Middle East isn't just investing in universities, right? I happen to be married to someone on Wall Street. Tell me a private equity fund or a major US company whose largest shareholder isn't out of the Middle East.
Yeah. What if they said
they're all silent for a reason?
If they said to Goldman Sachs, you can't hire people who aren't American citizens.
If you said that their money couldn't be in this country, our economy would collapse.
Yeah.
Overnight. It's the use of federal financing that allows the government can place conditions on what it chooses to finance.
But obviously, Matthew, they can't place any condition they want.
So it's interesting. I want to bring this into this conversation. I've said a lot of cringe lib things so far today, so let me go the other way.
Keep it up, Robbie. Keep it up.
It is true that this did not begin with the Trump administration. I covered for years efforts by the Obama and Biden administrations to compel universities to adapt specific policies relating to speech and due process around sexual misconduct under Title IX, in which case denying them funding was the explicit motivator. Obama sent a letter in, I think, 2011, the education department, to every college and university that gets federal funding and said, here's a list of policies we want you to adopt, frankly, that we think you are already obligated to adopt under federal law. And if you don't adopt them, you are in violation of federal law and we'll yank your funding. So I would say this is an escalation, what Trump is doing. It is not out of nowhere. It is well in keeping with what previous administrations have done. And I oppose that, and I oppose this.
Nina, you had a very different experience as a professor than Matthew did. And I wonder if there's like a public versus private university thing. Like, can you speak to that? Like, what do you think is that you didn't experience like Qatari cash, like influencing, the stuff like that? Like you didn't see that can you speak to that?
No, thank you, but no, not at a community college, not at all. And I mean, it's another reason why I am concerned about how we're labeling these things. Certainly Cuyahoga Community College is in Cleveland, attract a lot of working class students, first generation college students like myself. That was the first institution that I ever attended, and I am a first generation college graduate. If we're having a debate in the context of whether or not these Ivy League institutions create enough space for working class students or students who come from working class backgrounds, I think that's a legitimate debate. However, the context of whether or not all foreign students are a threat, that's the part that rattles me a little bit, Badia. I understand exactly what you're saying. I agree with some of what you're saying, but the context of how this is being handled, and then the labeling of all institutions of higher learning as if they're just pushing leftist rhetoric, nothing can be further from the truth. And so unless people have taught in these institutions, spent deep-seated time in these institutions, I don't think it's fair to label any one group, any one institution, or set of institutions with one broad brush like that. And furthermore, there was a time in this country where Black students could not, absolutely could not attend the colleges and universities of their choice.
That was a delicious video experience. I think you'll agree. Now, what you need to do in return for getting to enjoy that is hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss a thing.